Father Michael Brennan has 43 seconds to decide if he's willing to use mathematics to teach 19-year-old boys where bullets won't kill them. The coral reef at Tarawa Barrio is not actually coral. It's compressed calcium carbonate from millions of dead organisms, sharp enough to shred boot leather, shallow enough that the Higgins boats can't cross it, forcing Marines to wade 800 meters through waist-deep water while Japanese Type 92 machine guns fire from concrete pillboxes with interlocking fields of fire, creating a killing ground so perfect it looks like God designed it specifically to murder American boys between the landing craft and the beach. Father Brennan crouches behind a disabled amphibious tractor 40 meters from shore, water lapping at his knees, and watches Lance Corporal Jimmy Peterson, Boston accent, Red Sox fan, showed Brennan photos of his 2-month-old daughter yesterday. Try to run through the water toward the seawall. The machine gun fire catches him mid-stride. Peterson's helmet flies off. He drops face first into the water, which turns red around him, and floats there with his arms spread wide, like he's trying to embrace the Pacific Ocean. That's the 14th Marine Brennan has watched die in the past 6 minutes. It's November 20th, 1943, at 09:17 hours. The 2nd Marine Division's assault on Tarawa has been underway for 77 minutes. Intelligence said the pre-invasion naval bombardment would destroy the Japanese defenses. Intelligence was catastrophically wrong. The Japanese 7th Sasebo Special Naval Landing Force, 4,500 men, dug into reinforced concrete bunkers, is massacring Marines as they wade across the reef. Brennan should be giving last rites, should be praying, should be offering spiritual comfort to dying men. That's what chaplains do. That's what Jesuit priests do. That's what he promised God he would do when he took his vows at Boston College in 1935. Instead, Father Michael Brennan is calculating ballistic trajectories. The Type 92 machine gun in Pillbox 7, Brennan can see it, 340 meters northeast, firing in controlled bursts, has a cyclic rate of 450 rounds per minute. At this range, effective accuracy is approximately 65% against moving targets in water. The barrel heats after 200 rounds, causing vertical dispersion to increase by 8 centimeters per 100 meters. The gunner fires in 12-second bursts, pauses for 4 seconds to let the barrel cool, then resumes. 12-second firing window, 4-second cooling window. During those 4 seconds, Marines could advance 6 to 8 meters if they knew when the pause would occur. But they don't know. They just run randomly, hoping bullets miss, and bullets don't miss randomly. Bullets follow physics, follow mathematics, follow patterns that can be calculated if you're willing to apply differential equations to predicting where 19-year-old boys will die. Brennan was born in Cambridge, Massachusetts, 1909. His father was a doctor. His mother played piano at First Church. Young Michael showed mathematical talent early, solving calculus problems at age 14, publishing his first paper on differential equations at 17, earning doctorate in applied mathematics from MIT at 23. His dissertation on ballistic trajectory optimization earned highest honors. The Army wanted to hire him immediately, offered significant salary to apply his equations to artillery ranging. Brennan refused, joined the Jesuits instead, took vows of poverty, chastity, obedience, taught mathematics at Boston College, believed mathematical gifts should serve God, not war, believed equations should solve peaceful problems, not calculate optimal ways to kill people. Then Pearl Harbor happened. Then America needed chaplains. Then Brennan volunteered because Marines were dying and someone needed to give them last rites, and better a chaplain who understood young men, who'd taught boys Peterson's age, who could talk about baseball and mathematics and whether girls from Boston were prettier than girls from New York. But nobody told Brennan that watching boys die would make him want to calculate how to save them. The Japanese machine gun in Pillbox 7 stops firing. 4-second cooling pause. Brennan counts 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi. The gun resumes. 12-second burst, then another 4-second pause. The pattern is consistent, mechanical, predictable. If Brennan told Marines to wait for the 4-second pause, to advance during cooling windows, to move in calculated bursts synchronized with enemy reload cycles, fewer would die. But that's tactical advice. That's using mathematics to help men kill. That's violating everything Brennan believes about the proper use of mathematical gifts. "Father!" Someone is screaming over the machine gun fire. "Father Brennan!" Private Danny Sullivan, 18 years old, Irish Catholic from South Boston, crouches behind a coral outcrop 15 meters to Brennan's left. His face is pale. His hands shake. "Father, I can't do this. I can't run across that. I'm going to die. Please, Father, I need—" Sullivan wants absolution, wants last rites, wants a priest to tell him God will forgive his sins before Japanese bullets kill him. Brennan could give him that, could speak the Latin prayers, could offer spiritual comfort, could send Sullivan into the next life with a clean soul. Or Brennan could tell Sullivan about the 4-second cooling pause, could explain that the machine gun in Pillbox 7 fires predictably, that there are windows of reduced lethality, that mathematics can calculate when to move and when to wait. "Private Sullivan," Brennan hears himself say, his voice carrying over the gunfire with the same authority he used lecturing calculus students at Boston College. "The gun in that pillbox fires for 12 seconds, then pauses for 4 seconds while the barrel cools. Count the bursts. When you hear the gun stop, you have 4 seconds to move forward 8 meters to the next cover. Do you understand?" Sullivan stares at him. "You want me to count? To use math?" "I want you to survive the next 60 seconds, Private. The alternative is last rites. Your choice." Sullivan counts, waits. The machine gun stops. Sullivan runs during the 4-second pause, covers 8 meters, throws himself behind another coral outcrop. The gun resumes firing. Sullivan is still alive. What has Brennan done? He's a priest. Priests don't calculate optimal tactics. Priests don't teach young men how to use mathematics to dodge bullets so they can advance close enough to kill Japanese soldiers who are also someone's sons. But Sullivan is alive. 14 Marines are dead. One is alive because Brennan applied differential equations to machine gun barrel heat dispersion. A hand grabs Brennan's shoulder. Captain James Harrison, 2nd Battalion commander, crouches beside him. His uniform is soaked. His face carries 3 days of combat stress. "Father, I need help. We're losing 50% casualties crossing this reef. The men are terrified. They're freezing up. Some are refusing to leave the boats. I need you to—" "Give them courage?" Brennan interrupts. "Spiritual fortitude? Tell them God protects the righteous?" "I need you to figure out how the hell to get my Marines across 800 meters of killing ground without losing half of them." Brennan stares at Harrison. "Captain, I'm a chaplain. I give last rites. I don't give tactical advice." "You have a doctorate in applied mathematics from MIT. I read your personnel file. Before you became a priest, you published papers on ballistic optimization. Father, I've got 1,900 Marines who need to cross that reef. I've already lost 300. If you know something, anything, about how to reduce casualties, I need you to tell me. What you're asking violates my vows. I'm a priest. I'm not a tactician. Right now, I need you to be both, because God isn't stopping those machine guns, Father, but maybe mathematics can." Brennan looks at the reef, at the bodies floating in the shallow water, at Marines huddled behind whatever cover they can find, terrified to move, knowing that advancing means probable death. The Japanese defensive plan is mathematically elegant. 4 pillboxes positioned to create overlapping fire zones. Each gun covers the gaps in adjacent fields of fire. No dead space, no safe corridors, perfect interlocking coverage. Except machine guns have physical limitations. Barrel heat, ammunition feed rates, gunner fatigue, reload cycles. Each limitation creates temporal windows, brief moments when fire patterns shift, when coverage gaps appear, when mathematical probability of survival temporarily increases. If Brennan analyzes the fire pattern systematically, if he applies ballistic trajectory calculations, if he maps the overlapping fields of fire and identifies the temporal gaps, he could find shadow zones, routes through the killing ground where probability of death drops from 73% to maybe 40%. Still terrible odds, but 40% is better than 73%. The mathematics are clear. "Give me paper," Brennan says, "and a pencil, and 30 minutes to observe fire patterns." Harrison produces a waterproof notebook and pencil stub. "You have 15 minutes, Father. Then we advance or we abort. Those are the only options." Brennan opens the notebook, starts recording data with the same methodical precision he used grading student calculus exams at Boston College. Pillbox 1, northeast, 280 meters. Type 92 machine gun, fires in 15-second bursts, 6-second cooling pause. Effective range 400 meters. Current target zone, center right approach corridor. Barrel heat visible after 3 bursts, accuracy degrading. Pillbox 2, north 340 meters. Type 92 machine gun, fires in 12-second bursts, 4-second cooling pause. Overlaps with Pillbox 1's coverage but offset by 3 seconds. Creates 1.3-second window where both guns are paused simultaneously. Pillbox 3, northwest, 295 meters. Type 92 machine gun, fires in 18-second bursts. 8-second cooling pause. Longer bursts suggest different gunner discipline or newer barrel. Coverage overlaps with Pillbox 2, but timing is asynchronous. Pillbox 4, west, 380 meters. Appears to be 7.7 mm Type 89 anti-aircraft gun repurposed for ground defense. Different ballistic characteristics, flatter trajectory, longer range but slower traverse speed. Brennan spends 14 minutes recording data, mapping fire patterns, calculating reload cycles, identifying temporal windows where multiple guns pause simultaneously. The mathematics reveal something extraordinary. The Japanese defensive fire, while devastating, is not perfectly synchronized. Each gun crew operates independently. This creates brief moments, 2 to 4 seconds, when overlapping coverage gaps appear. Moments when a Marine could advance 10 to 12 meters with probability of being hit dropping to 38%. Brennan sketches a route through the reef, not a straight line. Straight lines maximize time in each fire zone. Instead, a zigzag path exploiting the temporal gaps. Advance 12 meters during Pillbox 1's cooling pause. Wait 8 seconds. Advance 10 meters during Pillbox 2's reload. Wait 6 seconds. Advance 14 meters during the 1.3-second window when Pillboxes 1 and 2 pause simultaneously. The route requires precise timing, requires Marines to count seconds under fire, requires them to move when instinct says freeze, to wait when instinct says run. But the mathematics say it will work. Probability of reaching the seawall alive, 62% versus 27% for random advance. "Captain Harrison," Brennan says, showing him the sketch. "This route minimizes exposure to overlapping fire. The timing windows are here, here, and here. Marines need to advance in coordinated groups synchronized with enemy reload cycles." Harrison studies the sketch for 30 seconds. "This is brilliant, Father. How confident are you?" "Mathematically? Very confident. The ballistic calculations are sound. Practically? I have no idea if Marines can execute synchronized movements under fire while counting seconds." "We'll find out. I need you to brief the platoon commanders. Explain the timing. Teach them your calculations." "Captain, I'm a priest. I can't—" "You're also the only person in this battalion who knows enough mathematics to save 1,500 lives. Father, I'm ordering you to help us, not asking." "Ordering?" Brennan should refuse, should cite his vows, should explain that Jesuit priests don't teach tactical mathematics. But he looks at the bodies floating in the reef, at Marines huddled behind inadequate cover, at boys who are going to die in the next hour unless someone applies differential equations to their survival. "I'll brief the commanders," Brennan says quietly. "But, Captain, I want it noted that I'm doing this under direct order, not voluntarily." "Noted, Father. Now teach my officers how to use calculus to not get killed." Brennan spends the next 23 minutes briefing 4 platoon commanders on synchronized advanced tactics. He explains machine gun barrel heat dissipation rates, describes reload cycle timing, calculates optimal group sizes to minimize exposure time while maximizing advance distance during coverage gaps. The officers stare at him like he's speaking a foreign language, which, in a sense, he is, the language of advanced mathematics applied to battlefield survival. "Father," Lieutenant Morrison asks, "you're telling us to count seconds while people are shooting at us?" "I'm telling you that machine guns follow physics. Physics follows mathematics. If you synchronize your movements with enemy reload cycles, probability of survival increases by 35%. Would you prefer to advance randomly and accept 73% casualty rate?" Morrison looks at his platoon, 43 Marines, most younger than 21. "No, Father, we'll try your math." At 10:47 hours, 3 platoons advance using Brennan's calculated route. They move in coordinated groups of 8 Marines, advancing during the precisely timed cooling pauses, waiting behind cover during fire bursts, counting seconds under fire with discipline that seems impossible until you realize the alternative is dying randomly. Brennan watches from behind the disabled Amtrak, counts seconds, calculates probabilities. Prays for the first time in 14 minutes, not for divine intervention, but for his mathematics to be correct, for barrel heat dissipation rates to match his calculations, for reload cycles to remain consistent. The first group covers 42 meters in the initial advance window. 0 casualties. The second group advances 38 meters. 1 wounded, shrapnel from mortar, not machine gun fire. Acceptable variance. The third group advances 46 meters. 0 casualties. By 1103 hours, 114 Marines have crossed 200 meters of reef using Brennan's synchronized advance tactics. Casualties: 11 wounded, 3 killed. Expected casualties for random advance over same distance: 42 killed, 60 wounded. The mathematics worked. Brennan's calculations saved approximately 75 Marine lives in 16 minutes. And Father Michael Brennan, Jesuit priest who took vows to serve God not war, feels something terrible settle in his chest. Not guilt exactly, but the awareness that he's just discovered he's very good at calculating how to help young men kill other young men efficiently. Captain Harrison appears beside him at 1109 hours. "Father, it's working. Your tactics are working. I need you to calculate routes for the next phase. We're 300 meters from the seawall. Can you map optimal approaches for 6 more platoons?" "Captain, I've already violated my vows by providing tactical advice once. You're asking me to systematize it, to become a battlefield calculator instead of a chaplain." "I'm asking you to save 1,200 lives, Father, because if we advance randomly, 600 Marines will die in the next hour. But if we use your mathematics, maybe 200 die instead. That's 400 lives, 400 boys who go home to their families. Isn't that worth—" Harrison stops. Doesn't finish the sentence. Worth what? Worth Brennan's soul? Worth violating Jesuit vows? Worth becoming the thing he swore never to become? A mathematician who uses his gifts to optimize killing? But the mathematics are clear. 400 lives saved versus maintaining spiritual purity. The equation doesn't care about Brennan's soul. The equation only cares about reducing casualties. "I'll calculate 6 more routes," Brennan says. His voice sounds like it's coming from somewhere far away. "But after today, Captain, I'm done. I'll go back to being a chaplain. I'll give last rites. I'll pray for the dead. I won't calculate optimal trajectories for killing." "After today might not matter, Father. None of us might survive Tarawa." Brennan pulls out the waterproof notebook, starts calculating. Pillbox firing patterns, barrel heat dispersion, reload cycle timing. Optimal advance routes minimizing exposure to overlapping fire. The mathematics flows smoothly. each calculation precise, each equation solving for minimum casualties. Each answer condemning Brennan a little bit more, because this application of pure mathematics to predicting where bullets will miss is exactly what he swore he'd never do when he left MIT to join the Jesuits. But 400 lives. The equation doesn't care about his soul. Father Michael Brennan has calculated death probabilities for 847 Marines, and his hands won't stop shaking. It's 13:47 hours on November 20th, 1943. Brennan sits behind the seawall at WWII, a concrete barrier the Japanese built to protect their airfield, now serving as cover for Marines who survived the reef crossing using Brennan's synchronized advance tactics. The wall is pockmarked with bullet impacts. Blood streaks the concrete where wounded men were dragged to cover. The air smells like cordite and salt water and the copper-iron stench of too many people bleeding in too small a space. Brennan's notebook is open on his lap. 6 pages of calculations, ballistic trajectories, barrel heat equations, probability distributions, each number representing where Marines should advance, when they should wait, how many will probably die despite perfect execution of his mathematical instructions. The calculations worked, expected casualties for random advance across 800 meters. 684 Marines killed or wounded out of 1,200 attempting the crossing. Actual casualties using Brennan's synchronized tactics, 198 Marines killed or wounded. Net result, 486 lives saved by applying MIT-level mathematics to machine gunfire patterns. Net cost, Father Michael Brennan no longer believes he's a priest. He's become something else, something that calculates optimal killing with the same precision he once used to grade calculus exams. Captain Harrison appears at 13:52 hours, crouching low as Japanese sniper fire kicks up coral dust along the seawall. His uniform is torn. A fresh bandage wraps his left forearm, shrapnel probably. His face shows the exhausted relief of a commander who expected to lose half his battalion and somehow didn't. "Father Brennan," Harrison says, and the formality in his voice carries more weight than gratitude. "Battalion commander wants to see you, Colonel Shoup. He's at the command post near Red Beach, too." "Did I do something wrong?" Brennan's voice is hollow. He hasn't slept in 31 hours, hasn't eaten in 14 hours, hasn't prayed since he started calculating trajectories. "Wrong? Father, you saved 400 lives this morning. Colonel Shoup wants your tactical assessment for the next phase. The Japanese have fallback positions throughout the island, reinforced bunkers, pre-registered artillery, more killing grounds. He needs your mathematics to minimize casualties during the advance inland." "Captain, I told you, after today I'm done. I calculate no more routes. I give last rites. That's what chaplains do." Harrison's face hardens. Not anger. Something worse. Disappointment. "Father, there are 6,000 Marines on this island. Intelligence says Japanese defenders number 4,500. This is going to be the bloodiest battle in Marine Corps history. Every tactical advantage matters. Your calculations gave us an advantage. Colonel Shoup needs that advantage to continue. What Colonel Shoup needs is irrelevant to my vows. I'm a Jesuit priest, Captain. I serve God, not the Marine Corps tactical doctrine. You serve both right now, Father, whether you like it or not." They make their way to the command post, a shell crater covered with a salvaged tarp, providing minimal protection from sniper fire. Colonel David Shoup, 2nd Marines commander, hunches over a map of Ghetto Island. His face is drawn. His eyes carry the weight of commanding men in a battle where every yard costs lives. "Father Brennan," Shoup doesn't look up from the map. "Captain Harrison tells me you have expertise in applied mathematics, ballistic trajectory optimization, that your calculations reduced our reef crossing casualties by approximately 70%. "Sir, I provided tactical advice once, under direct order. I don't intend—" "Father, I'm not asking your intentions. I'm asking your capabilities. Can you analyze Japanese defensive positions and calculate optimal assault routes that minimize Marine casualties? Brennan looks at the map. Ghetto Island is 800 meters long, 300 meters wide. The Japanese have transformed it into a fortress. Reinforced concrete bunkers every 40 meters, interlocking fields of fire, pre-registered artillery, underground tunnels connecting defensive positions. It's mathematically elegant, a killing ground optimized through years of careful preparation. Sir, I can calculate probabilities, can identify temporal gaps in overlapping fire patterns, can suggest routes that exploit enemy reload cycles and barrel heat limitations. But understanding what I'm doing, what you're asking me to do, is using mathematical optimization to help Marines kill Japanese defenders more efficiently. That violates my Jesuit vows. Your vows say you can't help save Marine lives. My vows say I can't use my mathematical gifts to optimize killing. There's a difference. Shoup looks up. His eyes are tired but sharp. Father, I've lost 301 Marines in the past 6 hours. I expect to lose 500 more before we secure this island. If your mathematics can reduce that number, can save even 100 lives, then I'm ordering you to apply your expertise. Not requesting. Ordering. If that violates your vows, you can discuss it with God after we win this battle. Brennan wants to refuse, wants to cite religious authority superseding military command, wants to explain that optimization of killing, even to save lives, is exactly what he swore never to do when he left MIT. But 500 expected casualties, versus maybe 400 if Brennan calculates optimal routes. Net savings, 100 Marines who go home instead of dying on a coral island nobody's heard of. The equation doesn't care about Brennan's soul. I'll need detailed maps of Japanese positions, Brennan says quietly. Intelligence on their weapons placement, estimates of ammunition supplies, observation of their fire patterns over at least 2 hours. Then I can calculate probability distributions. You'll have everything you need, Father. How long to produce tactical recommendations? 6 hours, maybe 8. Depends on the complexity of their defensive setup. You have 4 hours. We advance at 1800 hours regardless. I'd prefer we advance with your mathematics instead of blind courage. Brennan spends the next 4 hours performing calculations that damn him incrementally with each equation. The Japanese defensive positions on Ghetto are mathematically sophisticated. Each bunker positioned to cover gaps in adjacent fields of fire. Artillery pre-registered on likely Marine approach routes. Machine gun lanes overlapping to eliminate dead space. But sophistication creates pattern. Pattern creates predictability. Predictability enables calculation. Brennan identifies 3 critical weaknesses in the Japanese defense. First, the bunkers are positioned assuming Marines will advance along the most direct routes from the beaches. But direct routes maximize time in killing zones. If Marines advance along calculated diagonal approaches, longer distance but exploiting timing gaps in overlapping fire, casualty probability drops from 62% to 41%. Second, Japanese artillery fire follows predictable patterns. Shells land in pre-registered zones every 90 seconds. Between salvos, Marines have 37-second windows to advance through artillery impact zones with minimal risk. The timing is consistent, mechanical, calculable. Third, machine gun crews in bunkers 7, 12, and 18 are firing at rates suggesting ammunition constraints. Shorter bursts, longer cooling pauses. If Marines synchronize assaults on these bunkers during reload cycles, breakthrough probability increases from 28% to 54%. Brennan produces a tactical map showing optimal approach vectors color-coded by casualty probability, temporal windows for movement synchronized with enemy reload cycles, breakthrough points where defensive fire patterns overlap least efficiently, and estimated Marine losses for each route option, ranging from 127 casualties, optimal calculated route, to 489 casualties, direct assault. At 1743 hours, Brennan briefs Colonel Shoup and 6 company commanders on the mathematics. He explains ballistic trajectories with the same clarity he used teaching Boston College freshmen, describes probability distributions, calculates confidence intervals, presents the equation 127 casualties versus 489 casualties, net savings 362 Marine lives. The commanders stare at the tactical map like it's written in a foreign language, which it is, the language of advanced mathematics applied to predicting where young men will die. "Father," Captain Morrison asks, "you're saying if we advance diagonally across open ground, we'll have fewer casualties than advancing directly?" "I'm saying diagonal approaches exploit temporal gaps in overlapping fire. Yes, you cover more distance, but you spend less time in high-probability kill zones. The mathematics are clear." "And you're confident in these calculations?" Brennan hesitates. Confidence in mathematics is different from confidence in implementation. Equations don't account for human panic, Marines freezing under fire, officers making mistakes, battlefield chaos disrupting careful timing. "I'm confident in the mathematics," Brennan says carefully. "I'm less confident Marines can execute synchronized movements under heavy fire while counting seconds and maintaining unit cohesion. The equations assume perfect discipline. Reality rarely achieves perfection." "So these numbers are theoretical?" "All tactical planning is theoretical until tested by reality. But theoretical optimization is better than random advance hoping bullets miss." Colonel Shoup studies the map for 90 seconds. Then, "We use Father Brennan's routes. Company commanders, brief your platoon leaders. We advance at 1800 hours exactly. Synchronize watches. Execute the diagonal approaches as calculated. Questions?" "Sir," Lieutenant Hayes says, "what if Father Brennan's mathematics are wrong? What if we take more casualties following his routes than we would have otherwise?" Shoup looks at Brennan. "Father, what's your confidence level on these calculations?" "Mathematically, 89% confidence the calculated routes will produce fewer casualties than random advance. But that assumes enemy fire patterns remain consistent with observed behavior over the past 4 hours. And if Japanese tactics change? Then the calculations become invalid, and Marines die following routes optimized for patterns that no longer exist." The room goes silent. 6 company commanders processing the reality that they're about to commit 2,000 Marines to assault routes calculated by a priest with a doctorate in applied mathematics who hasn't slept in 33 hours and is using differential equations to predict where bullets will miss. "We proceed with Father Brennan's routes," Shoup says. Dismissed. At 1800 hours, 3 Marine companies advance using Brennan's calculated approach vectors. They move in coordinated groups synchronized with observed Japanese reload cycles. They advance diagonally across ground that looks wrong, too exposed, too far from obvious cover, but which Brennan's mathematics say exploits temporal gaps in overlapping defensive fire. Brennan watches from the command post, counts seconds, calculates probabilities in real time as variables change, updates his tactical map as new patterns emerge. The first company covers 80 meters in the initial advance phase. Casualties: 4 wounded, 1 killed. Expected casualties for random advance over same distance: 18 killed, 31 wounded. The second company advances 65 meters. Casualties: 7 wounded, 2 killed. Expected: 21 killed, 38 wounded. The third company covers 92 meters. Casualties: 3 wounded, 0 killed. Expected: 24 killed, 42 wounded. By 1847 hours, 3 Marine companies have advanced 400 meters inland using Brennan's synchronized tactics. Total casualties: 33 wounded, 9 killed. Expected casualties for random advance over same distance: 147 killed, 267 wounded. Net result: Brennan's mathematics saved approximately 372 Marine lives in 47 minutes. And Father Michael Brennan, Jesuit priest who took vows to serve God not war, kneels behind the command post and vomits into the coral sand. Captain Harrison finds him at 1852 hours. "Father, you all right?" I just calculated optimal routes for helping 2,000 Marines kill Japanese soldiers more efficiently. No, Captain, I'm not all right. You saved 372 lives. I optimized killing. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, you're using your God-given gifts to minimize casualties on both sides. The Japanese die faster, yes, but fewer Marines die in the process. Isn't that what? Brennan's voice is sharp, moral, justified, an appropriate use of mathematical expertise? I was going to say merciful. Father, this battle is happening regardless of your participation. Japanese soldiers will die. American Marines will die. The only question is, how many? Your mathematics reduce that number. How is reducing death not merciful? Brennan has no answer. The logic is impeccable. The mathematics are perfect. The moral equation balances. Fewer deaths on both sides equals greater mercy. But something fundamental has shifted. Brennan can feel it. The line between chaplain and tactician has dissolved. He's no longer giving last rites. He's preventing the need for last rites by calculating optimal ways to kill before being killed. At 1923 hours, Colonel Shoup summons Brennan again. Father, we've secured the first defensive line. Japanese are falling back to secondary positions. I need your tactical assessment for the next phase. Sir, I've already provided 3 tactical plans today. I need rest. Need to pray. Need to... Father, you need to calculate the next advance before 500 more Marines die unnecessarily. I know this is hard. I know this violates something fundamental for you. But we're in the middle of the bloodiest battle in Marine Corps history. Your personal spiritual crisis can wait until we secure this island. My personal spiritual crisis is that I'm no longer a priest, Colonel. I'm a battlefield calculator who happens to wear a cross. That distinction matters. It matters less than 500 lives, Father. Calculate the next advance. Brennan calculates. Spends 3 hours analyzing Japanese secondary defensive positions, mapping fire patterns, identifying temporal gaps, calculating probability distributions, each equation more precise than the last, each tactical recommendation more effective at minimizing Marine casualties while maximizing efficiency of Japanese defender elimination. By midnight, November 20th, Brennan has produced 7 tactical plans, each plan implemented, each plan successful. Total Marine casualties across all advances, 127 killed, 294 wounded. Expected casualties for random advance, 581 killed, 923 wounded. Net result, Brennan's mathematics saved 1,083 Marine lives in 14 hours. But at 0047 hours on November 21st, Private Danny Sullivan, the Irish Catholic kid from South Boston, who successfully used Brennan's 4-second cooling pause calculation during the reef crossing, dies from a Japanese grenade while assaulting Bunker 23. He dies following Brennan's calculated optimal approach route. Dies because Brennan's mathematics said Bunker 23 was vulnerable during a specific 6-second reload window, and Sullivan advanced during that window, and a Japanese soldier threw a grenade that the equations didn't account for. Sullivan dies at 0047 hours with Brennan's tactical instructions in his mind and shrapnel in his chest. They bring Sullivan's body to the aid station at 0052 hours. Brennan performs last rites. The Latin prayers feel hollow. Empty words spoken over a boy who died following mathematical instructions that were 94% accurate but not 100% accurate, because mathematics never guarantee survival, only optimize probability. Father, Sullivan whispers before he dies, blood bubbling from his mouth. The math was good. I made it further than anyone thought. Tell my ma, tell her the math was good. Sullivan dies at 0056 hours, believing mathematics saved him when actually mathematics killed him by suggesting Bunker 23 was vulnerable during a 6-second window that turned out to contain a Japanese soldier with a grenade who didn't follow Brennan's calculated probability distributions. Brennan sits beside Sullivan's body for 17 minutes. doesn't pray, doesn't calculate, just sits with the reality that perfect mathematics still produces imperfect outcomes. That optimization reduces but never eliminates death. That 1,083 lives saved means nothing to the families of the 127 who died following Brennan's carefully calculated instructions. At 1:13 hours, Captain Harrison finds Brennan. "Father, Colonel Shoup needs—" "I know what Colonel Shoup needs. He needs more calculations, more tactical plans, more optimization of killing, and I'll provide them, because the alternative is 500 more Sullivans dying randomly instead of 127 dying according to carefully calculated probability distributions." "Father." "But don't call me father anymore, Captain. I'm not a chaplain. I'm a battlefield mathematician who wears a cross. There's a difference." Over the next 52 hours, Brennan produces 23 tactical plans for the Tarawa assault, each plan implemented, each plan successful at reducing Marine casualties below random advance expectations. By November 23rd, when the island is declared secure, total Marine casualties are 1,009 killed and 2,001 wounded. Expected casualties based on Japanese defensive positions and initial assault patterns, 2,400 killed and 4,800 wounded. Net result, Brennan's mathematics saved approximately 3,890 Marine lives over 72 hours. But those 72 hours cost Brennan something the mathematics can't calculate. He stops praying, stops giving last rites unless specifically requested, stops identifying as a chaplain, becomes the math priest, what Marines call him when they need tactical calculations, when they need to know optimal advance routes, when they need someone to apply differential equations to predicting where bullets will miss. On November 24th, after Tarawa is secured, Colonel Shoup summons Brennan to the command post. "Father Brennan, I'm recommending you for the Navy Cross. Your tactical calculations were instrumental in reducing casualties by approximately 60% below projected levels. You saved thousands of lives." "I optimized killing, Colonel. Let's be precise about what happened." "You minimized death on both sides. That's different." "Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, I used MIT-level mathematics to help Marines kill Japanese soldiers more efficiently. The fact that fewer Marines died in the process doesn't change the fundamental act." "What fundamental act, Father?" "Using my God-given gifts for violence. The thing I swore I'd never do when I left MIT. The thing I spent 10 years avoiding by becoming a Jesuit. The thing I did anyway because the mathematics were too perfect, and the lives saved too numerous, and the moral equation too clear to refuse." Shoup studies Brennan for a long moment. "Father, you know what I see? I see a man who used his expertise to minimize suffering in an inevitable conflict. That's not sin. That's mercy with mathematics." Mercy would have been stopping the battle. Mathematics just made the killing more efficient. "You don't have authority to stop battles, Father. None of us do. We only have authority to fight them as humanely as possible. Your calculations made this battle more humane. How is that not serving God?" Brennan has no answer. The logic is impeccable, but logic doesn't address the fact that he spent 72 hours calculating optimal trajectories for killing, that his mathematical gifts were weaponized despite his vows, that he became the thing he swore he'd never become. "I'll accept the Navy Cross, Colonel, but I'm requesting immediate transfer away from combat operations, back to chaplain duties, last rites and prayers, no more tactical calculations." "Request denied, Father. You're being assigned to 2nd Marine Division permanent staff. Your expertise is too valuable to waste on routine chaplain work. You'll continue providing tactical mathematical analysis for future operations." "Sir, that's not a chaplain's role." "Your role is whatever the Marine Corps needs it to be, Father. Right now, we need your mathematics more than we need your prayers." Brennan is assigned to division staff December 1st, 1943. Over the next 18 months, he provides tactical calculations for the Marshall Islands operation, estimated 890 lives saved, the Marianas campaign, estimated 1,240 lives saved, Peleliu, estimated 780 lives saved, and Iwo Jima, estimated 2,100 lives saved. Total estimated Marine lives saved by Brennan's mathematical optimization, 8,900. Total estimated enemy soldiers killed more efficiently due to Brennan's tactical recommendations, 6,200. The mathematics are perfect. The optimization is flawless. The moral equation is simple. 8,900 Marines lived who would have died without Brennan's calculations. But Father Michael Brennan stops celebrating Mass in March 1944, stops identifying as a priest in August 1944, stops believing God cares about mathematical optimization in January 1945. By the time the war ends in August 1945, Brennan is no longer a Jesuit priest. He's a Marine Corps tactical analyst who happens to have a theology degree and still wears a cross because he's too lazy to remove it. After the war, Brennan returns to MIT, doesn't rejoin the Jesuits, doesn't resume theology, instead accepts position as professor of applied mathematics, teaching ballistic trajectory optimization to the next generation of engineers. His students think he's brilliant. His colleagues consider him one of the best tactical mathematicians in America. The Marine Corps awards him the Navy Cross, Silver Star, and Bronze Star for his contributions during the Pacific Campaign. Nobody asks why he wears a cross. Nobody asks why he never prays. Nobody asks what it cost him to save 8,900 lives by calculating optimal ways to kill 6,200 people. In 1952, Brennan publishes a textbook, Applied Ballistics, Mathematical Optimization in Combat Situations. It becomes required reading at every military academy in America. Brennan's methods, synchronizing advances with enemy reload cycles, exploiting barrel heat limitations, identifying temporal gaps in overlapping fire, become standard Marine Corps tactical doctrine. The book dedicates one sentence to Tarawa. Initial field testing of synchronized advanced tactics reduced casualties by 60% below projection. Doesn't mention that Brennan was a priest when he calculated those tactics. Doesn't mention Private Sullivan dying with mathematical optimization on his mind. Doesn't mention 72 hours when a Jesuit chaplain became a battlefield calculator and never recovered his faith. In 1963, Brennan receives letter from former Marine James Harrison, the captain who first asked him to calculate routes across Tarawa Reef. Harrison is 42 now, has 3 children, runs construction company in Philadelphia. Still alive because Brennan's mathematics got him across 800 meters of killing ground with only a shrapnel wound to his forearm. The letter says, "Father Brennan, I never properly thanked you for Tarawa. Your calculations saved my life and hundreds of others. I'm writing to tell you that my daughter Emily graduated MIT this year, top of her class in applied mathematics. She says she wants to use mathematics to save lives like you did. I told her about the math priest who used calculus to fight battles more humanely. She thinks you're a hero. Wanted you to know your work inspired the next generation." Brennan writes back, "Captain Harrison, I'm glad you survived Tarawa. I'm glad your daughter excels at mathematics. But please don't tell her I'm a hero. Tell her I'm a cautionary tale about what happens when you use God-given gifts for violence, even violence committed to minimize suffering. Tell her mathematics are pure until you apply them to predicting where bullets will miss. Tell her optimization is beautiful until you're optimizing killing. Tell her I saved 8,900 lives but lost my soul calculating how to do it. If she learns mathematics, tell her to use it for anything except war. Because war doesn't care about your vows. War doesn't care about your soul. War only cares about the optimization. And once you start optimizing, you never stop. Even 50 years later, I still calculate trajectories, still identify temporal gaps, still see the world as probability distributions where some people live and some people die based on mathematical precision. That's not heroism, Captain. That's damnation with differential equations." Brennan never sends the letter, burns it instead, writes a different letter that says, "Thank you for remembering Tarawa." I hope your daughter uses mathematics to build bridges instead of calculating where bullets miss. That would honor the 8,900 Marines who survived and the 127 who didn't. In 1978, Father Michael Brennan, though he hasn't been a priest in 34 years, dies at age 69. Heart attack, quick, painless. His office at MIT contains 47 published papers on ballistic optimization, 12 textbooks on applied tactical mathematics, and one crucifix he never removed from his wall despite abandoning his faith in 1944. At his funeral, 127 former Marines attend. Men who used Brennan's synchronized advance tactics to survive Tarawa, Peleliu, Iwo Jima. Men who calculated reload cycles under fire, who counted seconds while people shot at them, who exploited temporal gaps in overlapping defensive fire because a Jesuit priest with an MIT doctorate taught them that mathematics could save lives. None of them know that Brennan stopped believing in God, stopped praying, stopped considering himself a priest. They only know he saved their lives with calculus. The eulogy delivered by former Colonel David Shoup, retired Medal of Honor recipient, says, Father Brennan saved approximately 8,900 Marine lives through mathematical innovation. He saw patterns where others saw chaos. He calculated hope where others calculated only death. The Marine Corps owes him a debt that can never be repaid. What the eulogy doesn't say, Father Brennan paid his own debt, traded his soul for 8,900 lives, became a battlefield calculator instead of a priest, lost his faith teaching young men how to use mathematics to survive bullets. The equation worked. 8,900 Marines lived. One priest died spiritually. The mathematics say it was worth it. Father Michael Brennan, who stopped believing in God in 1944, would probably agree with the mathematics.